on day one of the Shopify store, like we had $100,000 in revenue on just the first day.
Hey, my name is Felix Tia, and I'm the host of Shopify Masters, a weekly podcast powered by Shopify, the easiest way to sell online, in person, and anywhere in between. Each week, we invite entrepreneurs like you to share what they've learned growing successful e-commerce businesses. In this episode, you'll learn what factors led to their success of their $900,000 Kickstarter campaign, what are the critical steps to take after your crowdfunding campaign ends, and why your SEO efforts should be focused on ranking high for Google image search results. Before our show, I wanted to chat about Shopify Ping. It's a free live chat app for Android or iOS devices, and it even works on iPads. Did you know that shoppers who use live chats are almost 3 times more likely to complete their purchase? With Shopify Ping, you can share products, exclusive discount codes, and help customers make purchases instantly. For more information, visit shopify.com/chat. Today I'm joined by Dan Blacklock from BoxThrone. BoxThrone is the world's first made-for-board games shelving system and was started in 2017 and based out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you saw a problem with the way traditional board games are stored. So what was the problem that you saw?
Basically, board games is a massive, fast-growing niche industry hobby, right? Like so many people are playing them, and basically there isn't a way for people to store them very well. Like most people are kind of storing them on like crappy IKEA furniture or like even just shoving them in their closets. Like I know people who just kind of keep them in a pile in their basement. And so I was one of those people, and I was looking for like a shelving solution, and then I couldn't really find something I wanted. Basically board games are super expensive, right? It's almost like an investment. So you don't want to like stack them too high on top of each other, risk damaging them. You want them to be easy to take off the shelf and all that kind of stuff. And you want to store them like flat as well. So when you store them sideways, all the pieces and stuff like fall down. And so most of the shelving solutions right now, other than BoxThrone, have you storing your board games like on their sides, right? And so I basically just saw that, and I was just like, I'm going to make a better shelf than all of these. So I did it. So like you store all your board games flat. There's one game on every shelf, and it's fully expandable and modular. So as your collection grows, you just add on to it.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely feel the pain. I don't have too many board games, but they're usually just like shoved and stuffed into one of my cabinets. So I definitely understand the problem use case that you're talking about. So did you have experience starting businesses or creating products in the past before BoxThrone?
I mean, not really. Like I dabbled a bit in drop shipping. Like I had like a dog clothes store, like just to mess around. I tried some branding stuff with that, but it didn't really take off. So yeah, not really. Honestly, it was my first dip into it. So it was kind of surprising how well it went.
Yeah, that's funny because I think that you follow the path that a lot of people follow when they get started with drop shipping or selling, dog products or clothing or some kind of merchandise. And but then you start venturing into creating your own products. What made you feel like? I guess why was BoxThrone the one that led to most success? Do you notice anything about what you did differently about the market that allowed you to have success with BoxThrone versus your previous attempts at starting a business?
Yeah, I mean, like it kind of taps into like Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers a little bit. Like I feel like it was just this combination of like the right timing, the right place, the right platform. Me specifically with my experience in board games as well. Like I launched this in November 2017, the Kickstarter, and I'd only really gotten to board games I think like 6 months before that, and so I was getting really interested in it, looking for accessories and how can I become more of an expert in the hobby at that time. And then at the same time, like Kickstarter board games were just starting to take off. Like you could at the time you could have launched any kind of Kickstarter board game product and done quite well for yourself. So it's a combination of like all those things, as well as I have a pretty strong marketing background as well. I love nerdy stuff, right? So like I've created this like awesome kind of medieval themed brand that I think like taps into a lot of like the target audience's interests. And I feel like all those things together just kind of fired up this kiln of success, It's kind of a cheesy thing to say, but
yeah, I mean, I think looking back on it, it makes a lot of sense. All of these things combine to contribute to your success. Is that possible to, I guess, replicate? Like if you were to give advice to someone else out there that maybe has started a drop shipping store, maybe has started a merchandise store and hasn't maybe got a little bit of traction, but couldn't scale, couldn't see the future. in business with that business? Like, how can they either course correct or look at things differently, again, based on the experience that you've had so that they can, line up future success stories?
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's just all about like understanding where trends are going. I think first of all, you should be in a business that you're interested in. You shouldn't be just chasing money. If you don't know anything about the business, don't even bother, because you're never going to be passionate enough to take it to the next level, right? And at the same time, you have to be looking to where like the money is going. Like, have you come across anything that's surprisingly successful and you're like, whoa, like I'm kind of interested in this. Like, I wonder if I can do anything in this space. It absolutely is. Like, whether that's, like just travel or like pet products or like board game stuff. I don't know what the next big thing is, but it's all about getting in on that trend when it's kind of like just before it peaks. And I feel like if you hit that, your business will blow up and take you places.
Makes sense. Yeah, sometimes it has a lot to do more with the market and the sentiment of the market. Sometimes not so much even. I mean, I'm sure your product is a great product, but a lot of times you do need the kind of tide to help you out as well. Now, you said that you should be focusing on an industry, on a product that you're passionate about. And what's just interesting about your case was that you said you're only into board games for 6 months. So you don't need to necessarily have a ton of experience or expertise or even exposure to the industry. You just need to have that passion. Is that what your experience has shown?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? Like, I feel like it's almost like a personality fit as well. Like, I was actually playing like tabletop games like when I was like 6, right? Like my brother and I would play like Warhammer 40,000 and stuff like that, and like Dungeons and Dragons when I was a teenager. So I was kind of like dabbling in it a little bit, but I didn't have like a regular board game group or anything like that, right? I wasn't researching board games and just involving myself in the space, like going on forums and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So it helps to be kind of like one of those people who would be suited to that industry, like say you're kind of like an outdoorsy person, but you've never taken your interest in travel to the next level. So I think it definitely helps to be sort of set up to be successful in that space, whether you have like similar interests or just like a personality fit. But yeah, in terms of like just diving in and just going like just ape on it, like, yeah, like you can go from 0 to 100 in 6 months, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine as having someone that is not, I guess, so involved in industry gives you kind of fresh eyes to not just accept the way things are. Right? It sounds like board games have been around forever, but there's never been a solution like the one you came up with. So I'm assuming most people just kind of made do with what they had. But I think coming with fresh eyes is definitely something that can be underrated. Coming at it for someone that is not necessarily like jaded by the existing products already. So I think that is certainly beneficial in a lot of ways.
That's exactly it. Like with board games in particular, like people had become so like stuck in their ways. Like they're like, oh, like this is the board game shelf, and it was referring to like the Kallax from IKEA, like that cube shelf. And so like that became kind of like a standard. And if you said anything like, hey, look, there's other things we can do, like the community would just, I don't know, they just go for your throat. Like it was scary times when I first started this product. We can talk about that later though.
Yeah, definitely want to go into the how to I guess communicate the benefits of your new way of storing products. But we'll get to that in a second. But I want to first talk about the Kickstarter campaign, because that sounds like where it all got started. So when you decided to launch this on Kickstarter and crowdfund it, how much of this was a real thing at that point? How much of BoxThrone was a real thing by the time you started, opening up a Kickstarter campaign and started filling in the forms?
Yeah, so I had started prototyping about 6 months before that, like before I actually launched the campaign. I guess about a year before that was when I had the idea, and then within 6 months I had the physical prototype, and 6 months after that I had launched. So yeah, about a year.
So, which I think is really important for Kickstarter to actually be able to see something physical out there. So now when you started the campaign, what was the goal of the campaign and how much did you end up raising?
I mean, the campaign, like the goal, I think was only like $20,000. And then the campaign, like the Kickstarter campaign itself raised over $900,000. And then afterwards we did kind of like a secondary crowdfunding campaign, which raised another couple $100,000, basically brought the total to about $1.2 million in total.
That's awesome. Tell us more about that. What was the secondary campaigns? I think a lot of people think, okay, Kickstarter, Campaign starts, campaign ends, and that's it. Then you kind of go into the bunker and then try to build a business from there. But you did another campaign after that. What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of stuff you can do after you've done your Kickstarter. So like we basically have this pledge management system called Crowdox, but you can set up your Crowdox system so that it's also like a mini Kickstarter. So you just tell everyone like, hey, this is only, you can buy the BoxThrone for another 30 days. This is the price, like maybe it's a little bit higher than the Kickstarter. It's almost like you can run a secondary Kickstarter like that. And now there's like lots of other options too. Like you can, Indiegogo has a platform too where it's like you can run it's called an in-demand campaign. So after you finish your Kickstarter, you can flip it over to Indiegogo and have like a short campaign on there and all that kind of stuff.
And I guess what's the difference between that first one and a secondary one? How do you, because I think a lot of times people say Kickstarter, and I'd imagine there's some urgency behind trying to get in within those 30 days, however long your campaign is running for to get those rewards. Now, all of a sudden, there's a secondary campaign. Do you have to change the kind of offer, the messaging on there that that will continue to keep on riding on that buzz from people contributing to, people paying attention to the campaign?
Yeah, like with the Kickstarter campaign, it's more like early adopters, right? It's people who are like wanting to take a chance on you. They're interested in it. They feel like they're part of building the product. Now, secondary campaign, it's more like the people who join it they're more risk averse. So you call those like late birds or late pledges. And so it feels like the product's already like on the way, like it's already being made in that secondary campaign. So it doesn't build as much momentum, right? Because like you don't have the big countdown timer there saying like, oh, there's only 3 days left before, you can never buy this product again, like Kickstarter does. So it's more like, it's a bit e-commerce-y in the way it is. So it kind of depends on your messaging, right? So like in our messaging, we say like, in our ads, our Facebook ads, would say like, this is the last chance, this is the last week, we're going to have this campaign up and all that kind of stuff. So.
Got it. You mentioned you use a tool, an app called, or a service called Crowdox.
Yes, Crowdox. Yeah, it's a post-campaign management system.
Got it. Now, how do you drive traffic from that Kickstarter, like the attention on there, over to Crowdox? Because you mentioned you raised another couple to a few 100,000, which is going to require a ton of traffic to see that. So, how are you diverting traffic to Crowdox?
So when you finish a campaign, you can change the button at the top to say whatever you want. So we just changed that to say, it's not too late to get a BoxThrone. Click here and you'll be taken through to our late pledge system. So a lot of the traffic, I think, were actually people who were on the fence about BoxThrone and maybe forgot about it, and then later came back and like, oh no, it's over. And so like they were kind of funneled through like that. Because if you look at the stats, most of the visitors actually just came straight from Kickstarter, not from the Facebook ads.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we were featured in a few different places in media and stuff like that. So people were kind of learning about it like close to the end of the campaign when it was almost too late.
Right, makes sense. Okay, so you end up raising, at least on Kickstarter, over $900,000, and ultimately you said $1.2 million. Now, once those campaigns close, well, actually, how long did you run the Crowdox campaign for?
I ran the Crowdox one for 60 days.
Got it. Okay, so once that ended, what was next? What was the next step for your business?
The next step was getting it made. Like, so that first prototype that I made 6 months after having the idea, was the one that we put in all the photos and all the videos for the campaign. And that's all like the marketing material. That actually wasn't the final product. Like we still had to make tweaks on it. Like the version that was in those videos was like, I think it was twice as heavy as the final product was. We basically ran into a lot of snags. Like after we designed the product and got all the money, and then we started calculating like, oh wait, this is how much it costs to ship it. Like we'd done some preliminary stuff originally, but a lot of stuff happened between getting that money from Kickstarter and actually manufacturing it. Like we had the trade war started right between China and the US pretty much right after we got that money. And so one of the things that was taxed was steel, right? So the price of steel goes through the roof, and our product is almost all steel. So like we had budgeted for one price, and then all of a sudden we're paying like 20 to 30% more. So there's that, plus like freight shipping got a lot more expensive. Basically everything was getting more expensive during that time. And so we had to find ways to kind of like make the system a little bit lighter. So basically we just like tweaked like certain things of the product. We actually improved it a little bit too. Like before we had like almost like coded MDF for the bases, and I wasn't really happy with it because it's kind of associated with cheaper material, cheaper furniture. So we went back and changed to this like super high grade like ABS plastic. Like it just feels really nice. Like the way we coated it, like it's actually made by this company that makes a lot of Japanese furniture. And so it's very precise in the way it's made. It has like the logo emblazoned on there and all this kind of stuff. So we had to go back and make all these little changes. I've completely found the question.
No, so the tweaks that you I think this makes sense that you went into production next. Now you mentioned that you made some tweaks to the product. Were any of these that came from? Because I think what I've heard from other Kickstarter campaign creators in the past is that they often get a lot of great feedback from the people that are just commenting, replying to their campaign, that have contributed, that are maybe emailing them after contribution. Did you get any kind of good feedback that allowed you to make adjustments to the product from the people that backed your campaigns?
Yeah, the board game community is very active in these kind of projects. So honestly, from day one of even making the project public, we had just so much feedback in like every way. Like the second we launched like the preview landing page way before the campaign, like we were already getting comments. Like I posted it on Reddit and people were like, "Oh, like I would never use this because you can't put miniatures on it." And so we saw that. I'm like, "Oh, why don't I make a little glass shelf that goes into this too, so you can put miniatures on it?" And then someone's like, "Oh, I can't store, all my Dungeons and Dragons stuff on this." I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, I'll just design a drawer real quick." And so I designed a drawer for it as well. And so I kind of did that with like a few different add-on ideas with that too. Oh, another one was like play mats, like the mats that you kind of will play on with some board games. They're made of silicone, right? So someone's like, "Oh, like I can't store these in this, they'll fall right through the holes in the shelf." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I just quickly designed like a hanging playmat holder that would be designed with at the time it was all steel with steel loops. And then when we launched the Kickstarter, I took all those ideas and launched Kickstarter. And there was another wave of kind of like revisions for stuff. Like some people were saying that maybe the extra wide shelves that I had included, like we have an extra wide version, wasn't long enough to fit this massive board game called Kingdom Death Monster, which is I think it's like 70 centimeters wide. And so I'm like, okay, so I had to quickly, like as the campaign's going, I go, call the factory. I'm like, "Hey, can we expand the size of this?" And then go back to Kickstarter and tell people like, "Hey, the extra wide shelves are now 20% longer." And then I go back again and people will be like, "Oh, like, I don't think you should make those play mats with like the steel loops and stuff like that. Like, how's it going to stay on there?" You're like, so I go back and change to like nylon straps and stuff like that. And then like just going back and forth with backers in the factory.
At what point do you say you kind of just close the door and let's just go with these features rather than keep on kind of expanding the scope of the products? I can imagine that the feedback will keep on coming and that you could always add more and more things. But how did you know when it was ready to at least go on Kickstarter?
Yeah, I mean, like I was new to everything, right? So I was just very much caught up in all the excitement. So I was like, "How big can we make this thing?" And just everything seemed possible, right? So I just kept adding stuff to it. Which just became kind of like more of a nightmare, like during manufacturing and shipping. But at one point, I was designing these like metal panels for the side, and then I realized how much it would cost to ship those and how much people would acceptably pay for them. And I'm like, I think I'm going to stop designing stuff. Like, it's getting so complicated. Like, I think we had like 12 different, like I have 76 different SKUs for this product. That's how modular and adaptable it is. And so I'm just like, if we had any more, like it's going to just become crazy. So basically I kind of put a pin in it around maybe like 3/4 of the way through the campaign.
Okay, now the campaign, obviously super successful. You mentioned that you kind of caught the wave of lots of popularity around board game-specific Kickstarter campaigns. But was there anything specific that you feel like you did well that you would certainly do again if you were to launch another campaign to help ensure the success or at least help stack the odds in your favor of a successful campaign like the one that you've been able to do?
Yeah, so I am actually launching a second campaign in a couple months here. And it's all kind of like within the same branding. Like the most important thing I think that was responsible for a lot of the success was having that very engaging branding. And so like for example, the whole brand is based around this character that I made called the Box King, who's kind of like this lovable, goofy dictator. Basically, he's the king of the Box Kingdom. Mm-hmm. And the backers are kind of like, or the customers even, like now with the Shopify store, are, they are kings of their own box kingdom. So like all the communication, all the brand, the emails and stuff like that go out to people who always say like, oh, like, Your Majesty, like we have this new thing in stock, or like, oh, I just received a raven, like blah 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 blah, and just having like very much in character and in theme. So people just like loved it. It's just like I really enjoyed building that world for people. Like I even like would show them stuff like, oh, like we're shipping the BoxThrone now, and like I designed like a medieval, galleon with like the Box King on the front, like to make people think that like, oh, this is a real world, like I'm getting involved in, right? I think people really like it. Like, we have a really high open rate on our emails. I think it's like I have about 15,000 people on our email list, and I have almost like a 50% open rate, I think, because of it.
Wow, definitely very impressive.
Yeah, so like I think that was like a big factor of it. So like I'm doing another campaign in a couple months, and I'm keeping it within that Box Kingdom framework, but I'm changing the theme a little bit. So instead of like the Box King being like the main dude in it, I got this Box Genie now, and he's like a genie, and he can make all your storage wishes come true. So we'll see how it goes. It should be pretty exciting.
That's cool. I mean, it definitely sounds like very immersive branding, which I think is something that you specified as leading to not just the success of the Kickstarter campaign, but then overall success with your Shopify store and your business as a whole. Is this all inside your head? Or is there a way for you to kind of make sure that you're following these almost like branding guidelines, especially as you grow bigger and hire more people, like making sure that branding is staying consistent?
Yeah, like I used to work in communications and PR for a Berkshire Hathaway energy company. So like I was already like pretty well trained in like how to basically build a brand and do the brand guidelines and have people stick to it, and understanding like the rules and stuff of what you can do. And also like with the marketing and communications aspect of that side of the job. So like I did that for 5 years. So I was kind of knew what I had to do to make that. And so like now, yeah, it really does make a huge difference. Like you have to sit down and kind of describe what you want the brand to be. Like how do you want people to feel when they look at your posters or read your emails or see your product, like, or look at your logo even, like, and everything, every little visual aspect of what people see affects how they feel, right? In terms of the brand, from the colors, from the words you use, from the shapes of the products, from the shapes of the pictures, like all those things, right? So you have to be very, very careful in what you select, right? When you're kind of crafting that world. And so like it's just about once you sit down and define all that, everything else just comes to you. So you know what, like once you have that framework, the words just flow out of you, the scripts come out of you. You know exactly what you want the videos and the illustrations to look like and all this kind of stuff.
Makes sense. Okay, so now you mentioned that I want to jump back into the manufacturing mode when you started running into all these roadblocks. You mentioned the cost of steel went up, your product was super heavy. What were the adjustments that, I guess, how long did it take you to figure out the right adjustments? How many iterations or prototypes during the manufacturing process before you were happy with a product that not only fulfilled on the promise that you made to the customers on Kickstarter, but then also didn't, eat into your profits too much?
Yeah, like, so I mean, the biggest one was that we changed that wood into that like high grade plastic. And that said, there's a lot of like weight in terms of shipping. So that helped a little bit. We made it more efficient, like in the design. Like we had a lot of wasted space in the columns, like they were too thick. So we made those like a little bit like thinner, and then it was just as strong. Like we weight tested everything. Like I guess like one of my best memories of making this product was like us standing in the factory with this like weight pressure machine. It was in a mold factory, so they just had tons and tons of giant chunks of heavy metal, and so we had this shelving system set up, and we just kept piling more and more chunks of metal into it to see how much weight it could take, and eventually just ran out of things to put on it. So we're just like, okay, I think this is good. I think we've designed it to be efficient and strong and light at the same time. And so like there were a lot of other tweaks too. Like we wanted to have like a way to secure it to the wall properly. I wanted more of like the branding on there, so we etched the logo on there and all this kind of stuff. And so from the end of the campaign, like I went to China right after the campaign closed to do this, and I was in China for a couple of months, and I came back and went again for a couple of months. Eventually, I live here now. I live in China now, just iterating on products and stuff like that. But yeah, it was probably about like 8, maybe like 7 months, I think, from when the campaign closed to when we had the final product shipping. I mean, there were 100 other things that went wrong though, like in the beginning. Should I talk about that now, or do you want to talk about that later?
Yeah, we'd love to hear more about it.
So to begin with, there was the trade war stuff, right? So we got the money, and then all this, like the tariffs came out, which affected us, by the way. It's a steel tariff, it's a steel product. So, we have to pay 20% more when we import it to the US. And the price of steel itself jumped like 20 to 30%. And then the US dollar appreciated against the Chinese yuan a lot, which would be great. But we had signed a contract before that. So when we signed the contract with the manufacturer, it was a very strong Chinese yuan. So it was like $1 US to 5 Chinese yuan, or maybe 6 Chinese yuan. And then all the trade war started, and then it just dropped, and it was like 1 to 7. So like we tried to negotiate a little bit, but like, oh no, contract's a contract. And I think they maybe pushed it a little bit to 6.2, but we were still like getting a bit jammed on it. Mm-hmm. So we basically got like a bit of a financial hit there. Also, like my logistics person, so just for scale, like the size of this product's pretty big, right? Like it's going to be like 6 feet wide. And so we had about 16 full containers worth of ships shipping around the world. So it's so many containers, so much logistics. And to begin with, our freight person overestimated the cost of it, basically gave us a bill that was like 4 times the amount it should have been. And I just didn't sleep for like 2 days straight. Like it's like I'm like, how are we going to do this? Like we're going to have to ship in portions. We can't finance this. Like, what are we going to do? And then they came back and were like, oh no, it's my mistake. I miscalculated it, and it's actually like a 25% of what they quoted. So I'm like, oh my god. So yeah. And then I think that the biggest blunder of them all was actually, I think, with our warehouse, our third-party logistics company in the US. Like I won't name I won't name any names because I still work with them. I've gotten a lot better now, but basically what happened was that we have a very, very customizable product. You can have like 3 blue shelves, 4 white shelves, 2 yellow shelves, and because I got too excited when I was doing the campaign. So when people asked for multiple colors, I was like, you can have anything you want. It's a lesson learned there. But at the time, like, okay, we got to make this work. So we basically had to create permutations of the different numbers of shelves in the boxes. Like, so we had to have like a box of 2, a box of 4, a box of 5, a box of 6 in different colors. And then so if you ordered a bunch of different colors, we could just ship you like, 2 boxes of 1 shelf, 2 boxes of 3 shelves, and 1 box of 20 shelves. And so I talked to this 3PL, and they said, oh yeah, we can just bind everything together. We can just strap it all together. I'm like, okay, that's great. And then you only pay like 1 fee, and you get a reduced costs, and it'll be a lot easier. I'm like, that sounds amazing. Let's do it. So we ship all the stuff to it. By the time it gets to them, it's maybe a week before Black Friday. First couple of days go by, and you start strapping stuff together and shipping it out. I'm like, wow, we're shipping it out very economically. This is amazing. And then they just stopped. They were just like, this is taking too long, and just shipped out everything individually.
Without letting you know, or?
Well, they let me know, and then didn't really do anything when I complained about it. I was like, hey, can you go back to doing that? They're like, no, can do. I'm like, this is going to be a problem. So I'm talking like each of these shelves, one shelf, I sold it to a customer for $2.50. They were shipping it out for $10 in shipping costs. And I had to pay for all the shipping costs. And so imagine this on the scale of tens of thousands. We shipped out 50,000 boxes. And then each day you see these numbers, just like $10 out of your money pool, $10 nonstop, and you're like, oh, this can't keep up, otherwise I'm going to be bankrupt. And so I'm not even sure how I survived it, to be honest. I think it's just because like we were able to make some compromises with some backers. We'd be like, hey, is it okay if we ship you 5 black shelves instead of 2 yellow shelves and 3 black shelves? And it's like, yeah, sure, that's fine. We were able to manage that a little bit better. But yeah, like the other issue as well is they wouldn't ship it multi-label. So that means that like they would be shipping out each product as its own shipment. So, and we had about 12 boxes per order. So like you're a customer and you're getting like stuff on all different days. You get 3 boxes on day 1, 4 boxes on day 2, 2 boxes on day 4. Like it's just like, it was crazy. It's like a customer service nightmare. And I didn't have any employees at that time. So like, I was like, handling all of this myself, and all it was a wild time.
I was going to say, I feel like the biggest issue might have been more on the, I guess you could swallow a lot of those issues as long as you can get the, I guess, not involvement, but like this sign off essentially from your customers that they'll be okay for this kind of experience. So what's your, I guess, advice there when you do kind of have chaos going on in the back end of the business behind the scenes, which can then spill out onto the customer experience. How do you kind of manage that with your customers?
I mean, like, first of all, like, you should be giving people the best experience you can, right? So you need to try and solve the problem in the first place, like, however you can. So, like, in this warehouse situation, like, I would try and find all different kinds of compromises. Like, hey, like, can you strap two of these together? Can you do this? Can you take stuff out of the box? Can you do this? And so I was giving like lots of different advice and trying to just chip away at the problem. And I think that helped maybe a good chunk of the problem. On the customer service side, like, I think you just have to communicate with people. Like, people hate not hearing anything or being surprised. So you just have to tell people, give them a heads up, and most people are fine with it. Like, most people are very level-headed. So you're like, oh, hey, this is actually going to happen. And they're like, okay, that's no problem. The biggest advice I could say is actually hiring a customer service person. Like, that has changed my business, just hiring a customer service person. Like, it gives me so much more time to focus on the actual product and the marketing side of stuff.
Yeah, so nowadays, because of all those headaches from a highly customizable product, is your product still as customizable, or have you made changes either in the product selection or the way that you do the supply chain to give you less gray hairs?
Yeah, we had to make a lot of changes just because I didn't really trust the warehouse anymore, like the US warehouse. So instead of having, everything in 12 different boxes, we basically start packing stuff together. We made stuff less customizable. So now it's like you can get all your frames in one color and all your shelves in another color. And before we were packing like the bases and the columns and other stuff separately to make it a little bit easier to ship. And we changed that. Now we would pack everything together. Like, we could ship out 3 big boxes instead of 12 little ones now, and that's made a big difference.
Yeah, do you find that people are either not necessarily complaining, but are asking for a more custom, I guess, to be able to customize their product more now that you've kind of reduced the almost like customized down to the shelves? Like, you're talking about selling many different packages, but at least you have a control over the combination, the permutation of them. Do you find that people care to have more control over their customization?
Honestly, like, not really. Like, I feel like people don't really miss what they can't have. If you show them, like, this is what it's like, people won't complain about it. They'll understand it on some level. The only complaints I've had is that I had to discontinue some colors. So I had to discontinue like the yellow and the green because the numbers just weren't high enough for the minimum order quantities. And so we had some people complaining about it. But I created a Facebook group called the BoxThrone Design Council. It was originally designed so that people can come and give their design ideas and stuff like that. But in that group, it was kind of a marketplace too. So someone would be like, hey, I'm looking for 12 green shelves. And someone would be like, okay, I'll buy those from you and all this kind of stuff. So
that's super cool to see, like, a little economy pop up over your products. Yeah, I think that's a good point about how they don't miss what they don't have, but then also you kind of reduce that decision like fatigue that your customers have to make when they have to customize the entire thing. I think a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners think that the more personalization, more customization, the better. But a lot of times, customers just want you to tell them, hey, what are the options, and to reduce the decisions for them, I think goes a long way.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I experienced too. Like, especially in the Kickstarter campaign, like, I think almost every customer was like, this is my space. What should I buy?
Yeah, they're looking to you for the expertise, So I think that as a business owner, you should feel comfortable and you should want to step up to tell them, hey, this is the best way to buy this product, or this is the best option for you. So once you got those, got the products to those initial backers, what was next? Like, how did you continue to drive new business, new customers to check out your product? What was working for you to go beyond the crowdfunding kind of traffic source?
Like, basically, like, I was seeing that the website had like kind of like a landing page up was just still getting a lot of hits. So I capitalized it and made the e-commerce store, right? I was always going to make a Shopify store anyway. So we made the Shopify store, but there were a lot of things that kind of like led to discovery of the product. Like, we are first on Google if you search for board game shelves, or I think we're first as well. You look for board game storage. I actually own the URL boardgameshelf.com as well. So I've done some like URL stuff, SEO stuff to get high up. And so like we got a lot of discovery that way. And at the same time, people were starting to receive their products, right, from the Kickstarter. So people were putting up videos, and I was getting really good reviews. Like I was actually terrified for a while of like, was I going to get bad reviews and this business is done? That's what I was so afraid of. And then I'll always remember the moment of like the very first email I got, and I'm like, oh man, this is it. Oh, I'm so worried. Like, is this going to be a guy ripping into the product and calling me, a scammer? I opened it up, and it's just a glowing review of everything. And you just had this massive, detailed review on every little thing. Like, oh, I think you guys should, add a couple centimeters over here. I think it would help for this. But everything else, is like, it's like very good, blah blah blah. But it was just a great email. It just really gives a good confidence boost. And from then on, it was like we did so many great reviews. So I put a lot of them onto the website itself. And so like that was a lot of momentum. So it just carried over to the Shopify store. There was so many people waiting for it. Like on day one of the Shopify store, like we had $100,000 in revenue on just the first day. And I think that pushed us into like the top 1% of like Shopify launches or something like that, as I saw on the page. But it was incredible. There's just so much momentum behind it. And then so it's just about like continuing it and keeping building that community and offering new products and expanding to new regions. Like we have 4 different websites now, like all for storemyboardgames.com, but it's like storemyboardgames.com or .co.uk and .com.au. We basically want to make people feel included. So we have like currencies that make sense. Like we don't have some kind of like janky currency conversion where it's like they have to pay, 351 pounds and 57 cents. Like we have everything kind of like, it seems very targeted towards like Europeans and Canadians and their market. So I feel like it gets people a bit more excited and involved in the product too.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review on iTunes to let us know what you think or what you'd like to hear more of. Now, let's get back to the interview. Okay, so you said a bunch of different things I want to dive into. So the first one you mentioned, so it sounds like there's 2 sources of traffic. One was the SEO that you did, and the second was just sounds like a lot of word of mouth. Now, the $100,000 in that first Shopify, like what was leading up to, like was there a campaign leading up to the launch day? Like how did people know that this is day one, I'm going to go and buy? Like where was the messaging or the marketing coming from that led to such a big kind of boost of traffic and sales in that first day?
Yeah, like honestly, it was all word of mouth, right? It was kind of the principle behind the product in the first place. I wanted to make something that like people walk into their home and they notice and they start talking about it. And so, you have this massive shelving system solving a problem that like a lot of people who are in the board game space kind of have. So like they would tell their friends, and then, I did Kickstarter updates telling people like, oh, if you're interested for the launch, go to this website. We had a little landing page on there, and you'll be notified on launch. I built the hype up with the original Kickstarter backers, and I guess they were spreading by word of mouth. Like I didn't do any Facebook ads before the launch. And also because it's an expandable system, right? So it was a year between the end of the campaign and the launch of the store. So their collections had grown since then, right? And it was an expandable system, so they'd want to add onto their system and grow more and double the size of the system. And like most customers are like, not most, but we have a lot of returning customers because of that. I think it's like a 25% of my sales are from returning customers, just people expanding the system. So all that kind of added up.
That definitely makes for a good business to have people coming back to buy add-ons essentially to your product. So when you mentioned that you want to, one of the things that you wanted to do, or at least that you've learned, is that you want to create something that your customers can brag about to people in their peer groups. Now, obviously the product itself has to be I guess brag worthy, right, to begin with. But are there things that you can do to encourage this? Features that you found that by adding into a product or messaging you can put out there that will encourage people to feel proud or to want to brag about your product to their friends?
Yeah, I mean, like the key principle is just to make as high end as possible, right? Like I always knew I wanted to make an expensive product because I didn't want to deal with the customer service nightmare of shipping out, millions of $20 products to people. So like I knew I wanted to have a very expensive product that I would only ship out a few of. And so having that expensive product that you try and get like the highest quality you can. First of all, it's metal. There isn't a lot of metal shelves that look good in the world generally. And the reason why I wanted metal is so they could just hold a tremendous amount of weight. Like I've got photos of people with their box thrones like 15 feet, 20 feet high. Like it's crazy. because it's all modular, right? So, and it holds all the weight perfectly. And so I just really wanted that like statement piece that was, it was like very high end. And so building up steel, you would allow you to build these huge systems. You can't ignore it when you walk in. Same logic with the colors too. So, people feel more attached to it because you have the personalized colors. Like one guy was big into Batman. So, he like made his like old school Batman. So he made his like frames gray and the shelves like light blue, and it looked really good. So people kind of feel like more attached to the product, and they tell their friends about it. So yeah, it's like, all those things kind of lump into making it into a statement piece.
Yeah. Okay. So that covers the word of mouth, how this product spread. Now, when it came to SEO, you mentioned you bought a couple of domains that were specific to what you believe were search traffic for your product. What else did you do specifically SEO wise that other people can take away to try to improve their rankings on Google?
I think hitting the Google image search is the most important, to be honest. Like, make sure you have all your alt tags on all your images, like on your website. Like on your Shopify store, make sure you have just tons of photos of your products and have them all alt tagged. I feel like it actually makes a big difference. And then at the same time, put those photos as well on Pinterest. Pinterest is like this strangely powerful hidden tool that I don't think a lot of people are using. Like even like I'm running like Pinterest ads right now, and they're like 10 times ROI on them. And I do feel like when you do Google image search, like a good 20% of the photos that show up are from Pinterest, at least for my product. And so I think that matters a lot in SEO. The rest of it, I think, is like a lot of like just traffic, right? And so just putting a lot of money into Facebook ads and social media ads.
Got it. Okay, let's talk about that next. Social media ads and Facebook ads. Beyond Facebook, what else do you advertise?
Yeah, so like Facebook is my primary, and then I do ads on Pinterest as well, because there's a lot of people looking for like apartment furniture, so it's just a very good crossover. And then I used to, like during the campaigns, like Kickstarter campaigns, I used to advertise on hobbyist websites like BoardGameGeek.com. But it doesn't really have as much of a conversion for non-Kickstarters. So like for the Shopify store, I only use Facebook and Pinterest, and the majority of it is Facebook. Also like Instagram, right? Like you advertise on Facebook and it goes to Instagram as well.
Can you say more about your strategy on Facebook? How do you set up your ads, and how do you do the targeting on Facebook to drive traffic that will convert to your website?
Yeah, I mean, like the key principle of my website is that I have to actually have pre-order cycles, right? So like every month, it's 1 month now, it used to be 2 months. It's almost like a mini Kickstarter campaign on the Shopify store. So I have a big countdown bar, and it's like, you only got 30 days left to buy this. And then when it goes down to 0, that's when I export all the orders to the factory and ship stuff out. And so it has that fear of missing out aspect on it. So I think that drives a lot of the conversions. And I use that a lot in the language as well as the Facebook ads. So it's like, use your last chance to get into wave 7 and all this kind of stuff. I mean, the main reason why I have that wave pre-order system is because the storage fees for this stuff is huge, because it's giant furniture, right? So I wouldn't be able to store just tons and tons of it. That said, like I'm looking to ways to make it better. Like we're trying to reduce our shipping times. I think we should be able to get them down by like half and stuff in a few months. But yeah, so like playing into that urgency cycle.
Yes, I'm on there right now. It says 19 days left for at least for this product if you get your pre-orders in. And you mentioned that you're doing this because of the constraints on the fulfillment side. But it sounds like it's working really well too on the marketing side to drive that urgency, getting people to get in. Do you see like a big uptick when it gets down to like the last couple of days?
Yeah, I mean like 80% of the sales actually happen. So like we used to have these like 2-month pre-order windows, and 80% of the sales happen in the last 2 weeks. Now I've shortened it to 1 month, and it happens about in the last week. Mm-hmm. So yeah, 80% is like just at the end, basically.
And all the marketing when it comes to Facebook ads is about getting in before the pre-order closes?
Yeah, like there's one side of the marketing where it's telling people like this is the world's first made for board games shelving system, the first completely modular metallic adjustable system. And then we hit them with like, now's the last chance to do it. And yeah, so like I find it's a win-win for everyone really, because people want to get into the way before it ends, because like we don't set it up in a way that we do it just to funnel people into the website. It's like we have to do it like that, just like from the financial constraints of it.
Yeah, you have a real reason to have this urgency. So you mentioned that you have two types of messaging. One is almost like education around maybe the first time they've ever seen your product before, and then the kind of countdown where you only have 19 days or 2 or 3 or 1 day left before pre-orders close. Is that like a retargeting ad, or do you still send that to kind of like, I guess, top of your funnel?
The thing with the retargeting is that I find that it isn't as effective for this product because people who are interested in it will go away and they'll measure their house and all this kind of stuff. They'll go away and look at it. And I think that it's top of mind for them enough. And they're kind of always thinking about, like, once you see that countdown timer and you're like, I'm interested in this product, you'll always be thinking about it. So you'll be like, it's only 10 days left to do this. Like, will this fit? And then, 2 days later, you go back and look at the store and you're like, there's only 8 days left now. Mm-hmm. And so I find that the retargeting actually, it's quite pointless to do it. So I actually hit the top of the funnel like the hardest.
Got it. Okay, so are you sending like on a given ad that someone might see, or do they see the kind of messaging around the first product of its kind and kind of introducing your product, and then also the urgency, or the urgency comes like later?
No, it's all at once. It's like, here's the product. You have a last chance. Just do it. I guess it's like my funnel isn't that deep, actually, to be honest. It's like it's spread quite wide, and maybe it's one thing I can improve, but I feel like a lot of people, when they do this, some of the marketing is actually built into some of the email communications. So like they'll go on there, add a product to see what how much the shipping is, and then they'll get like a really cute abandoned cart email. It's all in the theme. Like, oh no, Your Majesty, you've left the Box King alone in the wilderness. Are you going to save him? There's wolves out there. And that kind of like drags people in a little bit, and they go back and. So yeah, that's kind of my strategy for it.
Yeah, I was going to ask next. So like when it comes to your marketing, marketing to existing customers, you mentioned you said 25% of your sales come from returning customers. Is there marketing that drives them back to purchase, expansions to the modular system, or what are ways for you to get a 25% returning customer rate?
Yeah, a lot of that's emails, right? Because I basically always ask people to sign up for the email list, like pretty much everywhere all over the website. And so once they're in there, I don't really send that many emails. I send like one every 2 months. So it's really not that often. And usually when I have those emails, I have some good news into it. Like I don't really send like marketing emails like, hey, now's the last chance to buy this. I usually have some kind of news about the product or upcoming products or the company. So I'm like, hey, we just added this thing to the store, blah, 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 blah. And so people are always kind of interested to open up the emails, and that's almost all like returning customers, right? So yeah, just making sure people who have bought your product are engaged by email.
Now, talk a little bit about the tools that you use. So you mentioned CrowdOx, first of all, as a tool that you use after crowdfunding. What about email or any other tools that you use or apps even that you use on your site to run the business?
So I use MailChimp right now, but I think I'm going to swap over to Squarespace email. It's a little bit cheaper. Or even Shopify email, I've heard that's pretty cheap too. So I'm dabbling between those, but honestly, it's only outside of Shopify apps, pretty much all I use is just like MailChimp and Google Calendar and, just the G Suite. That's basically it.
What about the apps that you use on your website? What are some of those that you recommend?
Yeah, so the biggest difference is Wheelio, the spin to win. Like when I implemented that, I had probably like a 20% uptick in sales. I know I've heard that before as well on this show as well. It wasn't a 20% uptick sustained, but it was 20% at the time. And then now it's about like my store is always growing. So, I feel like it is part of the growth just because about 50% of customers have used those spin to win Wheelio coupon codes. And my email list is like blowing up. I get like a few hundred emails signed up like every week. So yeah.
Got it. So the email you get, you collect them through the spin to win Wheelio, basically in exchange for their email address. You give a discount code or some kind of prize to the prospective customer. And you mentioned you only send out emails like once every couple of months. Do you send out different emails for people that have joined your list through Wheelio versus other ways that they've joined your list?
Yeah. So I send one email out every 2 months. And the way I have my auto, like I do have a sales funnel in the way that I have like auto emails going out to new people who sign up. So if you sign up, you'll get an email kind of explaining more about BoxThrone, and then you'll get another one, urging people to buy before the end of the wave. But then that's it. And then from then on, it's only like the news emails. And so most of the people who sign up, like one of the criticisms I've heard about those spin to win apps is that all the emails are just junk that you get from there, because you're giving away discounts on the product as prizes. So a lot of people just sign up just to get the prize. But if you have like a good email funnel set up, those people are going to unsubscribe. Like, make it very easy for them to unsubscribe on that first email they get. And so you're gonna shed all the fat anyway. I think that's part of why I have such a pretty strong email following.
What do you send typically in that flow? What kind of emails are you sending? What kind of messaging do you send them?
So the first one is basically an educational email, telling them like, hey, like this is like the BoxThrone. These are things you can do with it. These are the add-ons that we have for it. And then the next one is just about like, hey, this is how the system works. Like we ship out every 2 months because of these reasons. Chances are there aren't many days left in your wave right now. You should jump aboard. So just have those two. I don't send too many out.
Got it. BoxThrone, which is at storemyboardgames.com. I'll leave you with this final question. What do you think is the biggest challenge for you as a business, or for you to overcome this year?
Well, I'm launching 2 more products this year, actually. It's not related to the board game shelf, but like I mentioned, it's kind of part of the BoxThrone universe. One is it's basically like a token storage system that it's just incredibly complicated for me to explain it, but it's basically like modular, and you can shift into all these different forms, and we have these like art plates made by famous board game artists, and so I've got to sustain the momentum with that while sustaining BoxThrone. And then I'm also launching a 3rd product later as well. And so I really wanted to tie all together, like I want to have everyone to feel like it's one big universe. So I'm going to have these mascots for each of the products and keep that going.
Super cool. So very exciting. If anyone wants to follow along, they can probably just join your email list at, again, storemyboardgames.com. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience, Dan.
Great. Thanks for having me. It's been awesome.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Shopify Masters, the e-commerce podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs powered by Shopify.